So I'm about to kick off my first quick study project as part of my goal to broaden my active repertoire in 2021. The piece I've chosen is Chopin's Nocturne in C-sharp minor, opus posthumous. There's a few reasons why I've chosen this piece. The most obvious being that it's a beautiful piece of music that everyone, I think, loves to listen to, and just about everyone wants to play. It's got a rich heritage with so many stories about it, which in some ways makes it a bit daunting, but I guess also in others also quite compelling. It's also something that I've never had a chance to play because it never fitted within the examination syllabi when I was a teenager or at university. And so as an amateur now, I guess one of the advantages I have is the opportunity to now go back and find or rescue some of those pieces that fell victim to the rigors of the graded examination framework. It's also a piece that is featured in a study edition that I worked on with Graham Fitch. Now, I've produced about, I think, 7 or 8 of these editions with him, which has been a lot of fun. But I guess the focus has always been on creating the content and getting it out there, making it available to people. So I haven't really had the chance to, or the time, to learn any of these pieces myself. I think I actually only play one of the pieces that we featured in the study edition. And so I also really would like to use the edition that we produced and see how it works for me in learning the piece. So I will be doing that. Now, the piece also fits with some of my criteria that I mentioned in my previous video for a quick study, in that, well, firstly, obviously, it's something I want to play. I think so often the quick studies that I did as part of formal quick study projects or examinations and things were not always the most musically interesting thing to play. They almost were like they were written by a computer. I guess because the objective there was to make sure that nobody had an unfair advantage in having seen the piece. So it was often something that was original, but not entirely fun to play. Then it's not too long. It's only about 3 pages long, and there's quite a bit of repetition, although with some variations, and that can be tricky, but it's not 20 pages long, and so that obviously just means less to learn in this within the time constraints. The notes themselves, I had a playthrough of it, and barring a few bits where there's a few tricky places that might need a bit more work with some of the trills and things like that, it feels like the notes will not take too much time to get under my fingers. It feels realistic at this stage. I mean, we'll see how that pans out over the next 2 weeks, but in terms of the level, it seems doable. Now, I'm going to be sharing in a few videos how I'm going to approach this project, and I'm going to do it in 2 weeks, and therefore I'm going to have to be quite focused in terms of how I learn it. I'm going to have to use specific tools and strategies to try and work as productively and effectively as possible. So I'll talk about some of these in future videos, and I'll also be sharing how things went and what went right and what went wrong, and hopefully what I've learned from that. Now, I also mentioned in my previous video on quick studies that it's good to have goals or milestones to work towards. And so what I've done with this, I've broken down the 2 weeks into milestones. The first being I'm going to record the piece for myself within about a week. And that will hopefully give me an idea of where some of the gaps lie in terms of the note learning and so on. Then I'm going to play it in a lesson. And that will hopefully give me some input on how to refine it and perhaps make what I'm doing a bit more musically satisfying and nice to listen to. And then I'm going to play it in an online amateur piano group meetup. And so that gives me quite a structured schedule to work towards. What I hope to achieve with this, other than just learning a piece that's always been on my bucket list, is firstly, I'm hoping to see where the bad habits are in terms of how I learn pieces. I think this process will hold a light to that and hopefully refine my approach and get better habits going forward. I also think that this might be quite a useful exercise in forming future quick studies, because there's a whole lot of other pieces that I plan on learning. And I'll get a feel from this, hopefully, as to was the difficulty level all right? Was it a good selection? And hopefully it'll inform future projects. So, without any further ado, I'm going to get stuck into the first stage of learning this piece.